On a bright Saturday morning, David Carter, a 37-year-old single father, sat quietly in a city park watching his 9-year-old son Ben play soccer with friends. 5 years earlier, David had lost his wife Emily to what everyone believed was a tragic boating accident during a tropical vacation. Her body was never found, and after months of searching, authorities declared her legally deceased. Since then, David had devoted every moment of his life to raising Ben. He never remarried. He still wore his wedding ring, and hidden beneath the sleeve of his left arm was a small tattoo, a tiny blue compass. Emily had the exact same tattoo. They had gotten them together on their honeymoon. It was their promise that no matter where life took them, they would always find their way back to each other. David believed that promise had died with her. Until that Saturday morning, as Ben chased the soccer ball across the field, 3 little girls, each about 7 years old and nearly identical, approached David. One smiled brightly. "Hello, sir." David smiled politely. "Hello." The second girl pointed toward his wrist. "You have a compass tattoo." David nodded. "I do." Then the third girl said something that made his heart stop. "Our mommy has one exactly like yours." David froze. "What did you say?" "Our mommy has the same blue compass, and it's in the same place." David felt his pulse race. "Girls, where is your mother?" They pointed toward a nearby lakeside cafe. David slowly stood. His legs suddenly felt weak. Near the outdoor tables stood a woman helping customers carry trays. She wore a baseball cap and sunglasses. When she turned sideways, David caught a glimpse of the tattoo, a blue compass, exactly the same. His hands began shaking. "Emily," the woman looked up. For several seconds, neither spoke. Her coffee tray slipped from her hands and crashed onto the ground. Tears instantly filled her eyes. "David," he could barely breathe. It can't be." She slowly removed her sunglasses. It was her, older. A faint scar crossed her forehead, but unmistakably Emily. Ben looked between them in confusion. "Dad?" David whispered. "I thought you were gone." Emily burst into tears. "So did I." They sat together inside the cafe while the triplets quietly colored pictures nearby. Emily finally explained. 5 years earlier, during the boating accident, she had been swept far from shore. She survived but suffered a severe head injury. When fishermen rescued her, she remembered nothing, not even her own name. Without identification and with complete memory loss, doctors listed her as an unknown patient. Months passed. She eventually rebuilt a simple life in another coastal town. A kind elderly couple took her in. She later adopted 3 abandoned sisters after volunteering at a children's shelter. "They became my family." Emily smiled through tears. "I still couldn't remember who I was." David listened silently. "Then 6 months ago," Emily continued, "my memories slowly started returning. Little pieces at first. A face, a wedding, a little boy." She looked toward Ben. "I remembered him." "So why didn't you come home?" David asked softly. Emily lowered her eyes. "I tried, but I discovered you had already rebuilt your life." David looked confused. "What?" "I found an old newspaper online. It showed you standing beside a woman at a charity event. I believed she was your new wife." David sighed. "She was my sister." Emily covered her face. "Oh no, I thought moving on would make everyone happier." David gently reached across the table. "I never stopped looking for you. I never stopped loving you." Ben quietly interrupted. "Dad, is she really my mom?" Emily turned toward him with trembling hands. "I'm so sorry. I wanted to come sooner." Ben stared at her for several long seconds. Then he slowly walked forward. "Can I hug you anyway?" Emily burst into tears. She wrapped her arms around him as years of heartbreak disappeared in a single embrace. The 3 triplets watched happily. One whispered, "I think Ben is our brother now." Everyone laughed through tears. Over the following weeks, lawyers confirmed Emily's identity through fingerprints, medical records, and DNA testing. The entire city was amazed. The woman declared dead 5 years earlier had finally come home. David welcomed not only Emily but also the 3 little girls she had adopted. Ben suddenly found himself with 3 younger sisters. The house became louder than ever. Shoes covered the hallway. Toys filled every room. Dinner conversations became wonderfully chaotic. For the first time in years, David's home truly felt alive again. One evening, the oldest triplet asked David, "Are you going to send us away now that Mommy found you?" David smiled warmly. He knelt beside all three girls. "You girls gave the woman I love a reason to keep living. That means you became part of our family long before I met you. If you're willing, I'd be honored to become your dad too." The girls threw themselves into his arms. Months later, David officially adopted all three sisters. Their family of 6 became inseparable. On their first family vacation together, they returned to the same beach where everything had begun years earlier. Standing together by the ocean, Emily gently held David's hand. "You remember why we chose these tattoos?" David smiled. "So we'd always find our way back." Emily looked at the 4 children playing in the sand. "I guess we finally did." A year later, they renewed their wedding vows in a small seaside ceremony. Ben proudly carried the rings. The triplets scattered flower petals down the aisle. As the sun set over the water, David looked at his family with gratitude. He had spent years believing he had lost everything. Instead, life had returned his greatest love, and unexpectedly blessed him with 3 daughters he had never imagined having. Sometimes hope survives even when memories fade. Sometimes family grows in ways no one expects, and sometimes a tiny matching tattoo is enough to lead 2 hearts back to where they always belonged.